It's a weird place to be where you had this big family, and it's a big thing.
Hey there. You ever notice that sometimes the most revealing things on reality television aren't scripted? They just slip out. Well, this time, TLC's cameras caught something they weren't supposed to. It was just one line, one offhand comment. But it changed everything about how fans saw the Brown family forever. The scene started like any other calm, uneventful. But then Kody said it. He looked around at his own family and muttered almost to himself, "It's weird having a big family." For a man who'd built his whole image on being the proud patriarch of a plural family, those words landed like a grenade. The crew froze. You can almost imagine the audio guy glancing up, the camera operator holding his breath, wondering if they just caught something they weren't meant to. Because this wasn't Kody in his polished media-trained mode. This was something raw, unguarded. From what insiders later revealed, it wasn't even part of a sit-down interview. It was between takes when everyone thought filming had paused. Kody was pacing in front of the house, rubbing his hands through his hair, frustrated. The wives were inside, talking about a family gathering that had gone wrong, again, and that's when he sighed and said it. It's weird to have a big family. It wasn't meant for the world to hear, but the cameras were still rolling. The editors knew they had something, but what do you do with a line like that? It's the kind of sentence that changes the tone of an entire show. Because think about it. This was the man who had spent years preaching about unity, shared love, the beauty of plural marriage. But now, in an unfiltered moment, he'd said what fans had always suspected he really felt, that the family he built had become too much, too heavy, too complicated to control. When that clip eventually aired, TLC cut it quickly, almost like they were trying to slip it in under the radar. But viewers noticed. The comment blew up online overnight. Blew up online overnight. Forums, Twitter threads, and fan groups erupted with one question. Was this the moment Kody finally admitted he didn't want this life anymore? Some fans said it was just a bad day, an exhausted moment from a man stretched too thin, but others believed it was the most honest thing he'd ever said on camera. He looked tired. One viewer wrote, like a man who realized his own dream had turned into his cage. Christine apparently had noticed the same thing long before. In a later interview, she mentioned that Kody's energy toward the family had shifted long before anyone saw it on screen. There were times, she said, when he'd walk into a room full of us and just drift. Like he wasn't there anymore. Like the life we built wasn't what he wanted. That episode became infamous, not because of drama or fights, but because of that single fleeting moment that TLC almost missed. And here's where things get even stranger. According to insiders, that wasn't the only thing Kody said that day. The cameras were still rolling as he walked off, muttering under his breath about never being able to make everyone happy. The producers reportedly debated whether to include more of it in the final cut. But showing too much would have changed the entire narrative of the season. TLC was already dealing with mounting criticism about the family's dysfunction. This would make it impossible to hide behind the united family storyline. Behind the scenes, tension was at an all-time high. Janelle and Mary were barely speaking. Christine was already emotionally checked out. And Robin was trying to hold on to what little control she had left. There's one insider story that still makes fans wonder if TLC knew more than they were letting on. The day after that filming, Kody apparently pulled one of the crew members aside and asked them, "You guys didn't catch that, did you?" The crew member didn't answer, they just looked away. That line, "It's weird to have a big family," would become symbolic. Fans replayed it, analyzed it, even slowed it down to study his tone. It wasn't angry. It wasn't joking. It was lonely. Christine once said that Kody's biggest weakness wasn't control. It was denial. He never wanted to admit he was drowning, she told a friend. But we all saw it. And here's the kicker. According to a leaked production memo from that season, TLC had to hold several narrative meetings to discuss how to reframe Kody's tone for future episodes. They couldn't have their lead appear disconnected from the family premise. So, they focused on his stresses instead. But those few seconds couldn't be undone. Fans had seen the truth. The cracks weren't just showing, they were spreading. That moment marked the beginning of something irreversible. Because after that day, things started unraveling faster than ever. Christine's patience ran out. Janelle started pulling back. Even Robin, the one who'd always defended him, started to distance herself. It wasn't the yelling or the arguments that broke the Brown family apart. It was quiet moments like that. Unscripted, unfiltered glimpses into how someone truly feels. And the irony? TLC spent years trying to craft a story about unity, faith, and love overcoming chaos. But in the end, it was the one thing they didn't mean to capture that told the real story. That night, fans began to notice small edits, strange audio fades, moments where the camera cut away too quickly when someone brought up family tension. It was almost like the network was patching holes in a sinking ship. But the damage was done. The world had seen what was never supposed to be seen. The patriarch of America's most famous plural family quietly confessing that the very thing he built no longer made sense to him. And here's the part that keeps people talking. What happened next? On set wasn't supposed to be filmed either. Because while the cameras focused on Kody's expression, someone else in the background reacted in a way that no one expected. A look, a whisper, a moment that changed everything. And that, right there, is where this story starts to take an even darker turn. When Kody's offhand comments slipped into the episode, most viewers thought it was nothing more than a tired dad's remark. But for the people inside that home, it was like someone had said the quiet part out loud. The word weird hung in the air. Not heavy like anger, but sharp like truth, finally cutting through years of pretending. Christine later described that day as different, not loud, not chaotic, just unsettling. You could feel something shift, she said in a quiet interview. It was like the air got thinner, like everyone heard it, but no one wanted to be the first to say it. Mary had been in the kitchen when Kody said it. She froze mid-step, holding a cup of coffee, her eyes flicking toward the window where the cameras were still pointed at him. Janelle was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to notice. Robin, who was sitting nearest to the door, looked at the producers almost instantly, silently pleading for them to cut the scene. But they didn't. TLC's production crew had been told for years to stay rolling no matter what. Authenticity sells. And that moment, raw and unscripted, was gold. They could sense it. But to the family, it wasn't television. It was real and painful. For years, Kody had been the voice of confidence. The man who told the world that plural love worked if you just believed hard enough, that faith and unity could overcome jealousy, exhaustion, and human nature. But now, for the first time, he sounded like someone who didn't believe in his own sermon. Fans didn't just hear the words. They felt the disconnection behind them. The way he said it wasn't bitter. It was almost hollow, like he'd been carrying something for too long. That night after filming wrapped, the house was silent. Dinner was awkward. Robin tried to fill the space with small talk. You know, we've all had long days, she said, forcing a smile. But no one replied. Christine eventually stood up and walked away, muttering something under her breath about finally hearing the truth. Mary later admitted that the line haunted her. It was like the moment you realize the marriage is really over, even if you're still in it, she said. That's what it felt like, the end hiding in plain sight. But what the cameras didn't show was what happened right after that line was recorded. A crew member, someone who'd been with the Browns for years, claimed Kody turned to one of the producers and said quietly, "Don't use that. It'll make me look bad." The producer nodded, but didn't promise anything. And that, according to multiple insiders, is where everything started to fracture. Not just within the family, but within TLC itself. Because there's something about unscripted truth that corporate networks can't fully control. The rawer it is, the more dangerous it becomes. In the weeks after the episode aired, TLC executives reportedly held multiple meetings about how to handle the public reaction. Viewers were calling Kody cold, checked out, and emotionally gone. Ratings were climbing, but for all the wrong reasons. The network loved the attention, but the family hated the fallout. Christine stopped attending joint interviews. She told producers she didn't trust how things were being edited. "You show the cracks, but not the causes," she said. Janelle backed her up. "You make it look like we're all crazy," she told them. "But maybe people should see what's really happening." The next few months of filming were tense. Kody became defensive. Every word he said sounded like it had to be measured, controlled. But you can't fake balance when the floor beneath you is already tilted. Then came another moment, smaller, but somehow even more telling. During a family dinner, Kody made a joke about how hard it was to keep track of everyone. The room went quiet again. Mary smiled weakly. Robin tried to laugh, but Christine, she looked straight at him and said, "Then maybe stop trying to be everywhere and start being somewhere." The crew caught that too. And just like before, there was an eerie pause. What viewers didn't realize was that by this point, Kody and Christine were living emotionally separate lives. TLC cameras tried to frame it as distance or communication issues. But in truth, it was disconnection. Real, irreversible disconnection. Behind the scenes, Christine had already started talking about leaving. But she wasn't angry, she was quiet, like someone who'd already decided. She later admitted that Kody's weird family comment didn't hurt her. It confirmed what she already knew. He wasn't just saying it was weird, she said. He was saying he didn't want it anymore. Maybe he never really did. Fans would later point to that moment as the seed of everything that came after. Christine's departure, Janelle's growing frustration, Mari's slow fade from the story. It all started with one line that TLC wasn't supposed to capture. And if you think the family tension was bad on screen, the off-camera reality was 10 times worse. The next few weeks of filming were filled with awkward silences and half-hearted smiles. The energy that once made the show feel real had vanished. TLC started scripting more heavily, trying to create storylines that distracted from the elephant in the room, that their lead man had emotionally checked out. Oni crew member remembered Christine breaking character during a confessional. "You want me to say it's fine?" she asked the producer. "Because it's not. None of this is fine." The producer reportedly paused, then said, "Just say you're working through it." Christine laughed. "We've been working through it for 10 years. Moments like that never made it to air. But they were there, locked away in hours of unseen footage, clips that fans would never see, but that everyone on set would remember. And yet, the strangest thing, the more raw things got, the higher the ratings went. Viewers couldn't look away. It wasn't the same cozy family show anymore. It had turned into something more real, more human. But as one insider put it, the more real it got, the less real the family became. Kody's weird comment wasn't just a statement about his family. It was a mirror, a reflection of a man who built his world on an idea and realized too late that he didn't fit inside it anymore. Still, fans were left wondering, what else did TLC's cameras catch that day? Because according to someone close to production, that wasn't the only revealing thing recorded. There was one more piece of audio, one that was never meant to be heard. And it's that lost recording, the one locked away in TLC's archives, that might finally explain why everything began to fall apart. But we'll get to that. Because before the audio came out, something happened that made Christine, for the first time, say out loud what she'd been feeling all along. And that moment would be the beginning of her quiet rebellion. Christine always said there wasn't a single big explosion that ended things. It was 1,000 small moments, piling up like dust until one day you realize the whole house was buried. But when fans look back now, they always point to that one afternoon, the day TLC's cameras stayed rolling after everyone thought the shoot was over. Because that was the moment Christine stopped pretending. You could see it on her face. There was a new calm in her eyes, the kind that comes when you stop waiting for someone to change. That day, the production team had been setting up for another round of interviews, filler shots, reaction clips, the usual fluff. Christine was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the lights and the distant voices of producers outside. Then Kody walked in. He looked exhausted, drained in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. The crew wasn't supposed to be filming yet, but one of the cameras was still rolling. Just a test shot. Kody muttered something about how hard it was to get everyone together for family dinners. "It's weird," he said again. "Having a big family. No one listens anymore." Christine didn't even turn around. She kept stirring. "It's not the family that's weird, Kody," she said quietly. "It's how you treat it." There was a beat of silence, the kind that hangs in the air when something true has just been said. Then Kody laughed. That nervous, half-defensive kind of laugh that doesn't reach the eyes. "You think it's my fault." Christine turned to face him. Her voice didn't rise, but it carried weight. "You used to say we were your dream. Now we're your burden. Maybe that's the weird part." One of the producers stepped forward, ready to intervene. The scene wasn't scheduled, and things were getting real. But instead of arguing, Kody just walked away. No shouting, no apology, just silence. The crew caught every second of it. They didn't mean to, but they did. And when the footage was reviewed later, someone in the editing room labeled it Scene 9B, the shift. That clip would never air in full, but parts of it, the tension, the silence, Christine's look, were quietly spliced into later episodes. From that day on, Christine's tone on camera changed. She wasn't angry anymore. She was done. Fans noticed it instantly. She stopped talking like she was trying to fix something. One viewer wrote, "She started talking like she was already free." Inside the family, though, freedom had a cost. After that shoot, things grew colder. Christine and Kody barely spoke unless the cameras were around. When producers asked for family group scenes, everyone showed up out of obligation, not affection. The laughter that once filled the house had been replaced by polite small talk and the sound of distant sighs. Robin, ever the peacekeeper, tried to smooth things over. She would pull Kody aside between takes, whispering that everything could still be salvaged. "You just need to remind them you love them," she said. But Kody's replies grew shorter each time. "I'm tired of being the bad guy," he'd say. Janelle started to detach too, slowly but deliberately. The family's group texts became quiet. Shared dinners turned into solo meals. TLC noticed, and they weren't happy. They wanted storylines, movement, resolution. But the real story wasn't resolution. It was decay. Behind closed doors, producers tried to convince Christine to stay one more season. They offered her more creative control, even private interview segments where she could tell her truth. But she didn't want airtime. She wanted peace. "You can't edit honesty," she told them. "And you can't heal on camera." Meanwhile, Kody was spiraling in his own way. The more the family pulled away, the more he tried to tighten his grip. He started talking about loyalty, obedience, respect, words that once meant unity but now sounded like control. And that's when TLC caught another unexpected moment, one they would never release publicly. It happened during a break between interviews. The lighting crew was resetting, and Kody was standing near the doorway with his mic still on. He didn't know the boom operator could hear him. He sighed and said almost to himself, "Sometimes I think they'd all be happier if I just disappeared." The room went still. Christine, sitting across the room, looked up but didn't speak. For a split second, the old Christine, the one who would have tried to comfort him, flickered in her expression. But then she looked down, adjusted her mic and said softly, "Maybe we all would." That single line, whispered almost under her breath, sent a chill through the crew. The audio engineer later said he replayed it 3 times before believing she'd actually said it. It was the truest moment of the season, and the most painful. When editing began, TLC executives decided to cut both lines. Too raw. They said too dark. It didn't fit the tone. But the people who worked on that episode never forgot it. "That's when we knew," one producer admitted. "She was really gone. Not physically yet, but emotionally. She'd already left." After that day, something about the production felt different. The crew, once invisible, started to feel like intruders. The Browns weren't a family being filmed anymore. They were fragments being documented. Every shoot after that felt heavier. Mary's eyes always darted toward the cameras before speaking, like she was calculating how her words would be edited. Janelle smiled less. Robin cried more. And Kody, he talked louder, as if volume could fill the silence growing around him. Christine's decision came quietly, without an announcement. One night after filming wrapped, she packed a small bag, left her mic on the counter, and walked out. No dramatic goodbye, no on-camera breakdown, just the sound of a door closing. When producers called her the next morning, she answered calmly. "I'm done," she said. "I don't want to do this anymore." They begged her to reconsider. They reminded her of contracts, storylines, fan expectations. But she didn't flinch. "Let them tell whatever story they want," she said. "I'm just not in it anymore." That's when TLC realized what they'd lost. Not just a wife or a cast member, but the emotional center of the show. Because without Christine, the family's chaos stopped being entertaining. It became tragic. But before Christine left for good, there was one final filming day. A quiet wrap-up interview that never aired in full. The crew described it as haunting. She sat in the same chair she'd been in for years, the same neutral backdrop behind her. She looked directly into the camera and said, "You know, people always ask what it's like to live in a big family. I used to say it was beautiful. But now I think it's strange how love can get so crowded that no one feels it anymore." The producer asked, "Is that what you want people to remember?" Christine smiled faintly. "No," she said. "I just want them to remember that even when you lose everything, you still have the choice to start again." The crew went silent. They knew it was over. And yet what happened after she left, the way TLC reacted, the way Kody responded, and what Robin did next, that was something no one saw coming. Because if Christine's exit was quiet, what came after was a storm. In the weeks following Christine's exit, the Brown household became a strange kind of ghost town. Rooms once filled with laughter and camera chatter now echoed with silence. The lights from the TLC crews still flashed outside the house occasionally, but inside, it felt like a set long after the actors had gone home. And even though the cameras were still rolling for what producers called follow-up content, everyone could feel it. Something was broken that couldn't be edited back together. For the first time in years, Kody wasn't the one in control. He'd built his identity around being the center of it all, the father, the leader, the glue holding the family in place. But with Christine gone, that illusion started collapsing. He spent long hours pacing the living room, muttering to himself about how she walked out on the vision, how she'd abandoned the family covenant. TLC's cameras caught pieces of those rants, but most of it was too raw to air. In private, even the producers said it didn't feel like a show anymore. It felt like surveillance. One camera operator later admitted that the tension was unlike anything they'd seen before. He'd start talking to us like we were part of the family, they said. Then he'd remember we weren't. And he'd shut down completely. The truth was, Kody wasn't angry just at Christine. He was angry at himself for losing control, and at TLC for catching every unfiltered second of it. Janelle tried to stay neutral. That's what she'd always done. Keep the peace. Avoid the fire. But as weeks passed, it got harder to ignore the pattern. Kody's energy had shifted from leading to defending. Every conversation turned into an argument about loyalty. And every argument ended with silence. At one point, the cameras caught a moment that would later become infamous among the production crew. Kody sat down for a solo confessional, his face pale, his hands trembling slightly. "People don't understand," he said, his voice tight. "They see a man who failed his family. But what they don't see is a man who gave everything, his time, his heart, his beliefs, and still wasn't enough." He paused, rubbed his temples, and added softly, "Maybe I was never supposed to have this big of a family. Maybe it was never meant to work." That line hit harder than any argument could. The editors left it in. They had to. It was too real, too revealing. The episode aired weeks later, and the backlash was instant. Fans were divided. Some sympathized. Others accused him of rewriting history. Forums lit up with debate. Was this guilt or manipulation? Was Kody finally being honest? Or was he trying to save face? Either way, the damage was done. His image as the confident patriarch had shattered. But there was something else brewing. Something the network didn't plan for. While TLC was busy focusing on Kody's unraveling, Robyn had started making her own quiet moves. For years, she'd been seen as the favorite, the wife who got everything. But when Christine left, Robyn realized that being the last one standing didn't mean stability. It meant isolation. She began showing up late to filming. Her energy was different, defensive but restless. During one confessional, she said something that stunned even the producers. "Everyone thinks I wanted this," she said, her voice trembling. "But what I wanted was a family now. It feels like I'm living with a stranger." The moment was raw, emotional, and completely unscripted. TLC execs debated cutting it. After all, the narrative of devoted Robyn had been a staple of the series. But eventually they left it in. The audience needed to see it. And that clip, just like Kody's earlier remark, spread like wildfire. Fans started piecing things together. Kody's exhaustion, Christine's departure, Robyn's guilt. It wasn't just a show falling apart. It was a real family imploding in slow motion. But what no one knew was that TLC had been sitting on even more footage. Hours of behind-the-scenes moments showing what happened when the cameras were supposed to be off. Whispered arguments, doors slamming, tears in the background. One of those clips, just a few seconds long, would later become one of the most talked-about leaks in TLC history. It happened one night after filming had wrapped. The cameras were still rolling for B-roll, catching glimpses of the house at night. Through a window, Kody and Robyn could be seen arguing in the kitchen. The audio was faint but clear enough to catch fragments. Robyn's voice, "You can't keep blaming them for leaving." Kody's voice, "You think I wanted this? You think I like being alone?" A pause. Then Robyn, "You're not alone, Kody. You just stopped showing up." That line, "You just stopped showing up," echoed across social media after it leaked. Fans called it the most honest sentence ever spoken on the show. TLC tried to downplay it, claiming it was taken out of context. But everyone knew what they'd heard. Inside the network, executives were panicking. The leaks had sparked new attention, but also a moral dilemma. How much real pain could they keep exploiting before it crossed the line? A few crew members even threatened to quit, saying the show had become emotional exploitation wrapped in family branding. Meanwhile, Kody spiraled deeper. His interviews became erratic. He'd talk in circles, one minute blaming the wives, the next blaming himself. "I thought God wanted this," he said in one clip. "But maybe God wanted me to see what pride does to a man." Christine, far away from it all, stayed silent. She refused interviews, ignored TLC's offers for closure specials, and instead focused on her new life. But silence doesn't always mean peace. One of her friends later revealed that Christine had seen the leaked footage of Kody and Robyn's argument. Her reaction was simple. She said, "He's finally seeing it, but too late." Then came the breaking point, the moment TLC could never undo. During what was supposed to be the final family meeting of the season, Kody tried to rally everyone together, to create a sense of unity for the cameras. But when the cameras started rolling, no one spoke. Not Mary, not Janelle, not Robin. The silence stretched for nearly a minute before Kody finally said, almost whispering, "I don't even recognize us anymore." And then, under his breath barely audible, he added, "It's weird, not having a family anymore." The camera caught every word. The editor who reviewed the footage reportedly stopped the playback and sat in silence for a full minute before calling his supervisor. They all knew what it meant. This wasn't just a show-ending moment. It was history. TLC executives debated whether to use it. It was devastating, personal, and heartbreakingly real. But in the end, they did, because that's what the audience came for. The truth. When the episode aired, it went viral. Fans called it the quietest heartbreak ever broadcast. Even people who'd never watched the show before shared the clip, calling it one of the most authentic moments ever seen on reality television. But what viewers didn't know, what TLC never aired, was what happened just after that line. Because when the cameras stopped rolling, something else unfolded. A conversation that no one outside that house was supposed to hear. And if the rumors are true, that conversation changed everything the audience thought they knew about Kody, the show, and the truth behind the Brown family's final chapter. The question now is, who leaked it, and what did they hear that night? When the cameras cut after that haunting moment, the crew thought the night was over. The house was dim, silent, except for the faint hum of equipment cooling down. But the sound operators didn't realize one of the boom mics was still live. It captured everything that happened next. The words that TLC would never release. The conversation that finally revealed what had been crumbling all along. Kody didn't storm off, like he usually did. He just sat there, slouched in his chair, staring at the empty seats around the table. Mary looked like she wanted to say something, but she couldn't find the words. Robin quietly wiped her face. Janelle sat back, arms folded, watching him like she'd already made peace with what she knew was coming. Finally, Kody exhaled and said softly, "You know what's weird? Not that we're broken. What's weird is that we all thought we could fix it. For a long time. No one spoke." The sound of a clock ticking filled the air. Then Janelle said, "You didn't want to fix it, Kody. You wanted to be right." He looked at her, startled. "That's not true." "It is," she said. "You wanted control, not connection. You wanted to lead, but you stopped listening." The room felt colder somehow. Even the crew, hidden behind the monitors, felt the weight of it. You could hear Mary's voice tremble as she said, "I kept waiting for you to see me again, but you only ever saw yourself." And then, to everyone's surprise, Robin spoke. Her voice was steady, but her words cracked something in the room. "We all loved you differently, Kody, but you loved us the same, as long as we fit the picture you wanted." That was the moment Kody's face changed. It wasn't anger or guilt. It was realization, the kind that sinks in slow and burns quietly. "You think I wanted it like this?" he said. "You think I wanted to fail?" Christine's name wasn't mentioned, but her absence was louder than any voice in the room. Every word, every silence, pointed back to her. What the audience never saw was what happened next. After that final, unplanned exchange, the producers decided to let the cameras roll one more time. Not for the show, just for record. A final moment. Robin stood up and said, "I can't do this anymore, Kody. I can't keep pretending this is still a family." She turned toward the door. The camera caught the reflection of her face in the window, her expression unreadable. She hesitated, looked back and added quietly, "And I'm not asking your permission." Then she walked out. That was the line TLC executives decided could never air. It was too final, too raw. The network's entire premise, the show's identity, depended on the illusion of possibility. But that night, in real time, that illusion shattered. When Robin left, Kody didn't follow. He didn't call after her, didn't plead or shout. He just sat there, hands clasped together, whispering something the mic barely caught. It was supposed to be forever. Mary wiped her tears. Janelle stood up, said nothing, and left the room. One by one, they drifted away until Kody was the only one left sitting under the glow of the production lights. The crew didn't know what to do. No one wanted to move. It felt intrusive, like witnessing the final breath of something sacred. Eventually, a producer walked up quietly and said, "We'll cut here." But even as they shut down the equipment, no one could look Kody in the eye. Later that night, one of the assistant editors would write in their notes, "End of sequence." Feels like an ending that was never supposed to happen on camera. TLC executives ordered the raw footage locked down immediately. Only a handful of people ever saw the unedited version. It became known among staff as the scene. Weeks later, fans noticed something strange in the season finale. The episode ended abruptly, with a fade-out instead of the usual family montage. The music was different, slower, emptier. Viewers flooded social media asking what had been cut. TLC stayed silent, but the people who'd worked on the show knew that what the world saw was only half of what happened. Off camera, rumors began spreading among the crew that Robyn had moved out temporarily, taking the kids with her. TLC's PR team scrambled to spin the story, claiming it was just time apart. But whispers suggested she'd told friends privately that she couldn't carry the weight anymore. Meanwhile, Kody stopped filming altogether. He told producers he needed time to rethink everything. Some called it burnout. Others said it was the first time he was finally being honest with himself, if no one else. For the first time in years, the network went quiet. No teasers, no interviews, no reunion specials, just silence. And that silence became louder than any argument ever could. Months later, Christine broke that silence, but not the way fans expected. She didn't release a tell-all or go on talk shows. Instead, she appeared in a short video on her social media, smiling softly as she cooked dinner. Someone in the comments asked if she missed being on camera. Her reply was simple: not all cameras show the truth. It was the closest she'd ever come to acknowledging that final season. But then came the real twist, one no one saw coming. A former TLC editor anonymously leaked a description of the scene online. They didn't post the footage, but they detailed exactly what was said after the cameras supposedly stopped rolling. It spread like wildfire. Fans were stunned. Comment sections exploded with theories. Some said the leak proved the family's end had been scripted all along. Others said it confirmed what they'd felt for years, that the show wasn't about faith or unity anymore. It was about survival. And yet, through all the chaos, one quote stood out from the leaked transcript, the one line that would haunt the show's legacy forever. It was Kody, near the end of that final shoot, saying, "I started this to build something holy, but somewhere along the way, I turned it into a performance." That confession changed everything, because for the first time, even his harshest critics didn't see arrogance. They saw regret. After the leak, TLC tried to contain the story. They issued a statement calling it unauthorized and misleading, but it was too late. The internet doesn't forget. Fans began sharing clips, interviews, and timelines, connecting the dots themselves. Christine refused to comment, but one of her close friends posted a cryptic message the next day. Truth doesn't need airtime. It just needs courage. Mary, who had always been careful about what she shared, broke her silence too. In a rare live stream, she said, "People think the cameras showed everything. They didn't. There are things that happened that will never make it to television, and maybe that's for the best." Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "But that night everyone said what they really meant. Even him." That was enough to confirm what fans had suspected. The scene was real. Over time, the story faded from headlines, but not from memory. Even now, years later, viewers still reference that night. The one where Kody said it was weird to have a big family. Because in that single sentence, he revealed more about himself and his world than years of confessionals ever could. And perhaps that's why TLC never aired the full footage. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was too honest, too human. What the cameras caught that night wasn't just a man losing his family. It was the moment he realized he already had. In the end, there were no grand speeches, no reconciliations, no fade to black promises of hope, just silence and the sound of a family unraveling in real time. And that silence, the one TLC tried to bury, became the truest story they ever told. Because somewhere in that unfinished footage lies a truth that still haunts the people who saw it. The truth that sometimes the most powerful moments aren't the ones planned, performed, or edited. They're the ones that slip through by accident, the ones that weren't supposed to be captured, but were. And if you think that's where it ends, think again. Because whispers have started again, claims that another recording from that night exists. One where someone, maybe not Kody, maybe not Robyn, said something the world still hasn't heard. And if that tape ever surfaces, it could finally expose everything TLC spent years trying to hide. So, the only question now is, when it does, will the world be ready for it? Because this time, it's not just about what the cameras caught. It's about what they didn't show. If you think this story is over, you might want to keep watching, like, comment, and stay tuned, because the next chapter might just rewrite everything you thought you knew about the Browns, TLC, and the truth they never wanted you to see.